Right. Abhishek, stay on with us. Marina Kortunova, who is also joining us right now. She's the journalist in Moscow. Marina, thank you so much for speaking to India today. In your view, this visit, of course, of the Russian foreign minister to India, what exactly is Russia looking to India in terms of achieving from this meeting? What exactly could possibly be the message that Russia is sending out in making this visit to India, and what it hopes to achieve after this visit concludes, Marina?
Good afternoon. So first of all, Washington and London have taken extraordinary steps to prevent Lavrov from fulfilling his mission. A senior U.S. presidential administration official said India would put itself a huge risk if it is increased oil imports from Russia. And the meaning of this warning is clear for us as well. And after all, India, which ranks third in the world in terms of oil imports and consumption, rapidly bought up Russian oil on spot markets after February 24th, receiving large discounts. The size of purchases is indicated by the fact that after this date, India acquired 13 million barrels, and for the whole of the previous year, about 16 million. So, as you know, in support of its threat, the White House sent Dalip Singh, Deputy Assistant to the President of National Security, to Delhi, and he is tasked with convincing Indian officials that they need to confront Russia. Britain also joined the pressure campaign, and the head of the Foreign Office, Liz Truss, arrives in Delhi before for democracies to act together, as she mentioned. So, as you know, Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov said that the United States is trying to put pressure on countries that interact with Russia. And what is even more striking is that this kind of blackmail is used against such ancient civilizations as China, India, Egypt. And according to him, almost all EU countries have already fallen under the United States because of their willingness to accept the imposed world order in any form. Moscow knew that the Americans were ready for a lot in order to prevent any positive progress towards a genuine multipolar world, that they would do such dirty work unworthy of a great power, and Moscow could not even think in a terrible dream. So earlier, Sergey Lavrov said that Russia is ready to look for any ways to ensure security on the European continent, except for the further expansion of NATO to the east. And according to him, the West from the very beginning had to desire to find a peaceful solution to the situation around Ukraine. And while there are no changes on the Western Front, Moscow is doubling its diplomatic activity in the Asian direction. So Lavrov visited China this week, and officially the current foreign trip of the Russian diplomat was devoted to the situation in Afghanistan. But of course, the minister devoted the lion's share of attention to Ukraine and the prospects of cooperation in the conditions of Western sanctions. As the Russian foreign minister noted, Russia and China opposed the counterproductive Western sanctions and decided together with their like-minded people to move towards multipolar and just world order. And Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in turn noted that both countries show a firmer willingness to develop bilateral relations and a firmer confidence in promoting cooperation in various fields. So Moscow and Russia believes that the BRICS countries, which account for nearly half of the world's population and a large share of the world GDP, will serve as a cornerstone of an emerging world order. Besides, BRICS countries have a significant role in protecting international law and struggle against the Western countries' sanction policy. Russia knows that in each country there are certain nuances related with the problems they face, but now it is uniting in protecting international law and its efforts to overcome arbitrary, illegitimate, unilateral sanctions that have become the sole political instrument in the United States and other countries.
Okay.
One more important point is that Russia is offering India a significant discount on the purchase of oil, and it became known that it is up to $35 per barrel, and it's a very good discount for India. So Russia expects India to acquire up to 15 million barrels on black gold in the near future, and according to the Bloomberg agencies, interlocutors negotiations are underway at the government level. So India is the second is the second largest importer of oil in Asia after China. You know it, as among those countries that have doubled purchases of Russian oil despite international pressure and the threat of sanctions. So Russia has also offered to make payments for oil in rupees and rubles using the Russian SPFC messaging system, which would make...
Marina, I'll come back to you. You've, of course, made multiple points over there that we, of course, will ponder on. I'll just cut across to my colleague Gaurav Sawant, who's, in fact, live joining us from Kyiv in Ukraine. Gaurav, given the kind of diplomatic engagements that India is witnessing from the United States, from the United Kingdom, and now the Russian foreign minister is in Delhi as well, engaging with the Indian side, hoping that India continues to maintain and appreciated. He, in fact, appreciated in his opening remarks India's neutral stand vis-a-vis this crisis in Ukraine. How is it being perceived on the ground? India's position that India has so far abstained from any sort of sanctions that the UN, that the UN tried to bring against Russia, and also the Russian resolution, I beg your pardon, as well, India abstains. So India has maintained a position of neutrality and has consistently said that diplomacy and dialogue are the only way forward in terms of resolution of any dispute. Gaurav.
You're absolutely right. India has adopted a very neutral position despite being extremely close to Russia. But the fact also remains India's engagement with the United States has also intensified in recent decades. But, as External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar articulated that several European countries have also increased their oil imports from Russia, oil and gas imports from Russia in the past 1 month alone. India's point has been that the West needs to stop pontificating at this point of time. India will look after India's national interests, and that remains supreme. You know, when the Americans say that when China transgresses the line of actual control next time, don't expect Russia to come running to India's help. But that's very clear to India anyways. Whether it's China's transgressions or Pakistan's state-sponsored terror, it is India that's handling the situation on its own. Of course, when it came to China's transgressions, a lot of intelligence was provided by the United States of America. There is no denying that fact that US has given India a lot of intelligence from Doklam to Galwan, and also post-Galwan, a lot of high-altitude winter clothing were provided in a quick supply from the United States of America as part of FMS, or foreign military sales, direct foreign military sales. At the same time, India also acquires a lot of military hardware from Russia, and India is trying to strike not just a balance but a best deal given the circumstances.
Right, and yesterday, in fact, Gaurav, when the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar was in the presence of UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss as well, he categorically stated that there seems to be a campaign to tell India what to do. But when it comes to Russian oil and gas and purchase of it, it appears now, even in the month of March, there has been a 15% increase in the purchase of Russian oil and gas by European nations in comparison to the last month. So the data, and he says that he suspects that the data for the next 2 to 3 months would show the same as well, whereas India's import is less than 1%. We purchase most of our oil from the Middle East, 7 to 8% from the United States. So why this campaign?
You know, this is the Western coercion that India is standing up to. It is the United States and US allies that have imposed sanctions on Russia. These are not United Nations imposed sanctions on Russia, and that's a point that India has repeatedly made. India moves forward on what the United Nations says and not what US and US allies say. And the manner in which, attempts are being made either by the US and or UK to talk down to India or force India, especially, what the West appears extremely concerned about is forward movement on rupee-ruble trade. That would be a major cause for concern, more than just this 1% of oil that India is acquiring from Russia at this point of time. rupee-ruble trade, should that happen, that is where, West's influence would be reduced even further. For example, Russia is anywhere, and that is being talked about very extensively here in Kiev. When MasterCard or Visa, when they put sanctions on Russia and Russia finds a solution to it, if Russia is able to find a solution without euro or without dollars, that actually in the long term, as even Kiev realizes, may just be a major setback to Western powers. So India, of course, like you and I have been discussing, and as External Affairs Minister articulated, India is looking after India's national interests. There's been a 15% spike, and this is just in the past month alone of West acquiring, procuring oil and gas from Russia. In times to come, let's see, in the months ahead, several European countries have said that they will continue to procure oil and gas from Russia because it impacts their economy directly. So this using the market as a weapon, in the long run, will it actually work or will it end up being counterproductive? India being very clear about it, India will look after our national interest in terms of procuring whether oil and gas or military hardware.
Right.
And India did stand up to US coercion on Katsa for the acquisition of the S-400 systems. Despite American pressure, India did go ahead with the 39,000 crore S-400 deal because that is in India's national interest.
Absolutely. Gaurav Sawant, Abhishek Bhala, thank you so much for joining us. Also, thank you to our guest, Marina, for joining us for the Russian perspective on how this visit is in fact being viewed. The visit of Russian Foreign Minister Sergey Lavrov. Now, ahead of Indian External Affairs ministers meet with the top Russian minister, US's coercion tactic triggers outrage in India. US Deputy National Security Advisor has cautioned India over trade with Russia. On his visit to India, Deputy NSA for International Economics Dalip Singh said, and I quote, "There will be consequences for any country, including India, that conducts local currency transactions through Russia's central bank, subverting the sanctions US put on Russia." Unquote. On Thursday, India defended the decision to look for good deals for energy requirements. India even pointed out that Europe has been a major buyer of Russian oil even after the invasion began.
Different countries are going to have their own relationship with the Russian Federation. It's a fact of history, it's a fact of geography. That is not something that we are seeking to change. What we are seeking to do, whether it is in the context of India or other partners and allies around the world, is to do all we can to see to it that the international community is speaking in unison, speaking loudly against this unjustified, unprovoked, premeditated aggression, calling for an end to the violence, using the leverage that countries, including India, have to those ends.
That we respect other countries' decisions about the issues that they face. India is a sovereign nation. I'm not going to tell India what to do. What I've said is, as a member of the UK government that has signed up to the Budapest Memorandum, I feel a strong responsibility on behalf of the United Kingdom to take all the action we can to support the people of Ukraine. But that is not the same as going around telling other countries what to do.
What looks almost like a campaign on this issue. Now, I was just reading a report today that in the month of March, Europe has bought, I think, 15% more oil and gas from Russia than it did the month before. If you look at the major buyers of oil and gas from Russia, I think you'd find most of them are in Europe. We ourselves get the bulk of our energy supplies from the Middle East, about 7.5%, 8% of our oil from the US. In the past, maybe less than 1% from Russia. When oil prices go up, I think it's natural for countries to go out into the market and look for what are good deals for their people. But I am pretty sure if we wait 2 or 3 months and actually look at who are the big buyers of Russian gas and oil, I suspect the list won't be very different from what it used to be, and I suspect we won't be in the top 10 on that list.
When the oil prices have gone up, India does not really, the Ukraine-Russia crisis or the West and the Russia confrontation, India doesn't have a role to play there, right? I mean, it's not because of us or our diplomatic failures or oversight that this kind of a situation has embarked upon the world. So it's very natural for the prices to, when the prices go up, it's natural for countries to go out in the market and look for better deals, right? So that's what we are doing. And as far as Russia coming and standing up for us in case there is an LAC incursion, so when there was a 2020 incursion, I don't think any country, even US, came and stood by India, let alone Russia. So these are, I would say, in my opinion, Russia tactics, because you see, US and these do not stand any technical ground, because the sanctions that are imposed by the US on Russia are the moderate category, where US has not stopped its allies and partners from buying oil from Russia.